The January evening was frigid, and the snow blanketing the ground enveloped the world in a serene hush. Within the confines of my living room, the crackling fire cast a cozy glow that danced across the walls. For the last 5 years, I have existed in solitude, a quiet echo of my life following the end of my marriage, steeped in sorrow. The betrayal of my husband left deep scars, yet I found the strength to rebuild my life, a life defined by independence and the joy of nurturing my adoptive child. James, my joy and treasure, had reached the age of 26, embraced marriage, and seemed to have found his footing in life. His regular appearances brought a comforting glow to the household. He radiated an inviting warmth and an undeniable energy. Yet this evening felt distinct. Upon entering, the familiar ease of his smile vanished, giving way to an unidentifiable weight that hung in the air. Seated opposite me, he seemed to weigh each word with deliberate thought before uttering them. At last, he let out a deep sigh, his fingers weaving through his hair in a moment of contemplation. "Mom," he said, his voice trembling just a bit, "I have something important to share with you." The flames danced in his gaze, mirroring the turmoil within him. I leaned forward, feeling a tightness in my chest. "What is this? Could it be James?" I inquired. He hesitated for a moment. Then the words flowed forth, unfiltered and raw. "You occupy my thoughts incessantly." He confessed that his voice trembled. I made an effort, yet I fell short. "It feels unjust to Megan, and I am fully aware that it is morally wrong. Yet, I find it hard to believe that I have ever loved her as deeply as I do in this moment." He succumbed to slumber, his confession lingering like a weighty fog in the atmosphere. For a moment, I was engulfed in a suffocating stillness, the walls closing in around me, rendering me breathless and immobile. In a fleeting moment, the confines of our roles were obliterated. I faltered, grappling with my words as I attempted to reply. "James, this is not accurate. You are my son," he murmured, his voice trembling with emotion. Yet, my emotions remained steadfast and unyielding. The fire whispered softly, breaking the stillness that lay between us. James sat, his head lowered and his hands clenched tightly together. His remarks had disrupted the well-worn rhythm of our existence, casting a profound shadow in their wake. The following morning, as the feeble winter sun struggled to pierce the heavy clouds, a knock echoed at the door. With a sense of trepidation, I slowly opened it. My breath hitched at the sight of James on the porch. Snowflakes clung to his dark hair and garments. His gaze held a softness that contrasted with the previous evening, yet the burden of unvoiced thoughts lingered in the air. "May I enter?" he asked with a hint of anxiety, his voice barely above a whisper. I stepped aside, my mind a whirl of uncertainty, words eluding me. "What do you mean?" With a small backpack slung over his shoulder, he entered the room, and in that moment, it became clear that he wasn't just passing through. He intended to make this place his home. "James," I said, cautiously shutting the door behind him, "what is unfolding?" He set his suitcase down with care and turned to face me, his expression inscrutable. "All I require is a moment to myself," he stated plainly. "A few days to clear my mind. Megan is staying with her family." I found myself at a loss for where to turn next. My instinct was to refuse to return him to the life he knew. Yet, it was the fragility reflected in his gaze that held me back. Against my better judgment, I acquiesced with a nod. "Just a few days," I declared with a sense of assurance, even though doubt lingered within me. "Thank you, thou," he murmured, his shoulders easing as though liberated from an immense weight. As the hours unfolded, my awareness of James's presence deepened. He had always possessed a keen awareness, yet now his actions appeared intentional. He was adamant about taking on the household chores, encouraging me to take a break as he tackled the dishes. He gathered firewood, meticulously arranging the logs, then ventured into town for groceries, coming back with my beloved tea and chocolates. He steered clear of mentioning the conversation from the night before, and for a time it was easy to maintain the illusion that all was well. Yet it was not. His movements appeared deliberate, as though he were trying to convey something. His gaze upon me was soft, searching, and steady, and it unraveled my resolve. As the sun dipped below the horizon, we found ourselves nestled in the warmth of the living room, side by side. The flames cast dancing shadows upon the walls, creating a mesmerizing play of light and dark. James had crafted a simple yet hearty stew for dinner, presenting it to me first. Sitting across from me, his hands cradling the bowl, he shattered the stillness with his words. "I appreciate your hospitality," he remarked. I grasped that it's intricate. I must admit, my eyes remain averted. However, I would be glad to assist you if possible. Your unwavering support has been a constant in my life. He carried on, his voice brimming with emotion. Even in moments of unawareness, it was something I truly required. My heart skipped a beat as I met the intensity of his gaze. The absence of the child I had nurtured was palpable. This was a man, stripped bare, his emotions laid open and exposed. I quickly averted my gaze, sensing the weight of his intense stare upon me. Once the supper plates were cleared, he proposed that we indulge in a movie together. With a heavy heart, I acquiesced. We occupied opposite ends of the couch, the space between us a paradox of comfort and despair. In spite of my attempts to immerse myself in the flickering images on the screen, my mind betrayed me, drawing me back to the moments that had led us to this point. The initial encounter with the peculiar was marked by its understated nature, embracing warmth, a farewell that lingered just a touch too long. His hand grazed mine with a deliberate intent that felt almost too bold. Then there were the glances that lingered for a heartbeat too long. The compliments resonated with a depth that transcended mere casualness. In that moment, I brushed it aside. We credited it to our enduring closeness. Yet, in retrospect, I find myself questioning how I could have been so oblivious. As the final credits rolled, James shifted his gaze towards me. His gaze was gentle yet enigmatic. "Are you all right?" he asked with a soft touch. "I am well," I deceived. My voice barely ascended beyond a whisper, utterly drained. He nodded, his gaze lingering on me for a moment before he stood to collect the empty mugs from the coffee table. I observed him meander toward the kitchen. His well-known presence enveloped the space, unsettling me in an unexpected manner. That night, as I lay in bed, he filled my mind. His quiet focus, his benevolence, all things seemed transformed in this moment. It was as though every movement conveyed a silent communication. My mind surged with a torrent of questions, each one lingering unanswered. As I finally surrendered to sleep, an unsettling realization washed over me. My emotions had become far more intricate than I had ever anticipated. The following morning, James was already awake, positioned by the stove, cradling a mug of coffee in his hand. Upon catching sight of me, he smiled, and the warmth in his gaze sent a flutter through my chest. "Good morning," he whispered gently. "Good morning," I replied with a hint of uncertainty. "Breakfast is nearly prepared," he remarked, gesturing toward the skillet on the fire. "I thought you might appreciate a moment of respite." I lingered at the kitchen table, observing him glide through the space with a fluidity that felt both instinctive and disconcerting, as though this place belonged to him, as if he were woven into the very fabric of his existence. In that instant, the burden of all that remained unspoken pressed heavily upon me. He placed a plate before me and took a seat across the table, his demeanor friendly yet inquisitive. After a moment, he responded, "You have been quiet. Are you really sure you're all right?" I took a moment, choosing my words with precision. "Contemplation has occupied my mind lately," I articulated with precision. He nodded, his gaze unwavering from mine. "I concur." The silence that enveloped us was thick with unexpressed truths. I felt compelled to urge him to cease, to depart, and to reclaim the existence he had crafted in my absence. Yet I found myself unable to do so, for in the stillness of his kindness and unwavering attention, I too began to feel it. I rose from my seat and made my way to the window, drawing back the curtain to gaze upon the yard blanketed in snow. The moonlight danced upon the immaculate, white expanse, creating a vivid juxtaposition to the chaos swirling within my mind. "James," I began to speak, my voice scarcely rising above a whisper. Are you aware of what you're expressing? He took his time before replying. As I pivoted, our gazes locked, his eyes brimming with an undeniable sorrow. I've tried not to feel this way, he continued, his voice trembling as he leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Yet, with each encounter, with every exchange between us, I find myself irresistibly pulled toward you, and I am at a loss for how to halt this compelling attraction. I sank into the armchair by the fire, gripping the armrests as though they might offer me some semblance of stability. I declared with conviction, "You are my son. I brought you into this world. Your presence captivates me, yet not in that manner. My heart cannot embrace you in that manner." He shook his head, a mixture of exasperation and anguish etched across his features. "I understand the way it may come across. I am aware of the thoughts that may cross others' minds. Yet, I can no longer maintain this facade. It is absent. It is tearing me to shreds. Mother, James, cease this at once." I cut through my tone, allowing it to take on a sharper edge. "One possesses a spouse. Your existence is devoid of this element. You pledged your promises to Megan. Are you aware of the stakes involved in making such a statement to me?" "I comprehend." He wept, his voice ascending. "Surely you understand that I've spent countless nights wide awake, convincing myself it's merely a fleeting infatuation. While there may seem to be a hint of ambiguity, it is, in fact, quite clear." He dragged his hands over his face, the weight of his despair unmistakable. It remained steadfast. I took a deep breath, striving to quell the tumult of feelings swirling inside me. I had known heartbreak in the past, yet this was an entirely new realm of anguish, a depth of suffering that eluded my understanding. At last, I let the words slip out in a hushed tone, my nerves palpable. "It is time for you to go. It would be wise for you to return to Megan." He regarded me as though I had struck him. "Depart, just in that manner. So, you expect me to act as if I haven't just laid my soul bare before you. Is that right?" I responded with a chill, masking the storm within. "This has no place in our lives. You articulated it yourself. It is incorrect. It is a matter beyond our ability to alter, converse about, or take pleasure in. It is time for you to depart." He ascended with deliberate slowness. The flickering flames danced, creating shadows that played across his features. For a fleeting moment, he mirrored the sun, the very light I had nurtured in the child who sought solace in my embrace after the terrors of the night. Yet, in an instant, he transformed into a man brimming with emotions and desires that I found impossible to align with my role in his existence. "I'll take my leave," he murmured softly. Yet, the story continues beyond that point. "These emotions will linger, regardless of your insistence that I depart, and I fear they may never fade." I shut my eyes as the door slammed closed behind him, his footsteps reverberating across the wooden floor. My chest tightened, and my thoughts surged like a tempest. The subsequent days melded into one another as I threw myself into work and various tasks, striving to distract my mind. Yet, regardless of my hectic schedule, the sting of James's words lingered in my mind, haunting me. I revisited our conversation, dissecting each embrace, glance, and gesture that could have led him to believe we shared something deeper than mere maternal affection. In the stillness of the night, the phone's shrill ring pierced the silence, and I found myself pausing, uncertain whether to pick it up. "Greetings," I uttered. "It is I." James's voice emerged, soft and uncertain. With my eyes shut, I rested against the cool surface of the kitchen counter. "Your call is unexpected. I truly long to hear your voice," he expressed. "I regret if this seems selfish, but I find myself unable to resist." "James?" I started, yet my voice trembled. "What is there to express? How can I establish boundaries with someone I have cherished so deeply for such a long time?" "Mom," he whispered, his voice laced with quiet desperation. "I see your intentions to shield both of us, yet I find myself unable to return to the facade of pretense. Returning to Megan and feigning that all is well is simply not an option for me." As he spoke of his wife, a searing guilt ignited within me. I declared with conviction, She loves you. She is worthy of so much more than what she currently has. She deserves your unwavering loyalty. What of me? He asked with an icy demeanor. Am I worthy of it? To dwell in perpetual discontent for all my days? To embrace a deception merely to ease the burdens of others? You deserve happiness, I whispered, my voice trembling. However, not in this manner. Not with me, James. This is not love. It is distorted by our closeness and the circumstances surrounding us. It is essential to recognize what is truly absent from your existence and create a plan to remedy it. That is not something you can do in my presence. A prolonged silence stretched between us, and I began to fret that he might have disconnected the call. Then his voice emerged, scarcely rising above a whisper. I regret having to place this burden upon you. I felt it was important for you to be aware. I required you to grasp the essence of my thoughts. To comprehend. Tears streamed down my cheeks as I murmured softly, beyond your awareness. However, James, this must come to an end, and it must do so now. As the call concluded, I lingered in the softly illuminated kitchen, the phone resting in my grasp. The burden of our conversation settled heavily upon me, as though I were shouldering the weight of both our concerns. Outside, the snow descended quietly and unyieldingly, mirroring the storm of emotions we struggled to dispel. The days unfolded with a languid rhythm, James remaining steadfastly by my side. We found ourselves in a cadence that was instinctive and unexpectedly comforting. He exhibited a level of attentiveness that was unfamiliar to me, inquiring about my preferences for tea, suggesting novels that might resonate with me, and ensuring the atmosphere remained warm and inviting. The tension that once enveloped us slowly faded, making room for an elusive sensation I struggled to name. One evening, after the supper had been savored, we lingered in the living room. The fire cast a warm, flickering glow, while James draped a blanket over my legs, insisting that the room felt unusually cold. He perched at the far end of the couch, yet as moments passed, the distance between us appeared to diminish. As the film drew to a close, he was so close that his arm grazed mine while he extended his hand for the remote. Apologies, he murmured, retreating a fraction. That's all right, I remarked, yet my racing heartbeat revealed the truth of my feelings. He glanced in my direction, his demeanor focused. I truly miss this, he added. What have I overlooked? I inquired with a touch of uncertainty. He admitted to being present with you. It resonates perfectly. I gulped, uncertainty swirling within me, unsure of how to respond. His words carried a gravity I was unready to shoulder, so I evaded them. You've always possessed a remarkable ability to render the complex simple, solely due to your influence, he whispered softly, his gaze unwavering. Your presence enhances everything around you. I averted my gaze, sensing the all-too-familiar pull of emotions I had been striving to suppress. It had become more challenging, with his presence so near and unyielding. James, we have already gone over this matter, he stated quickly. I am not attempting to revisit this matter. I wish for you to grasp the depth of your significance in my life. You mean everything to me too, I admitted, my voice scarcely above a whisper. Yet we must proceed with caution. He inclined his head slightly and reclined against the couch. I will refrain from exerting any pressure. I felt it was important to share this with you. That night, as I lay in bed, my thoughts lingered on how effortlessly he fit into my world. His warm presence and the effortless flow of our conversation encompassed all that I had unknowingly yearned for, and yet it filled me with dread. As the days unfolded, the limits I once established began to lose their significance. As time went on, my emotions for James grew increasingly challenging to contain. The next morning, a snowstorm swept in, transforming the landscape beyond into a serene canvas of white. When I finally made my way downstairs, I found that James had already kindled the fire, and the rich scent of coffee wafted through the room. As I entered the kitchen, he glanced up, a warm smile blossoming on his face. He greeted me with a cheerful, "Good morning," as he offered a steaming mug. The conditions outside are truly dreadful. It seems we are trapped in a blanket of snow. I gazed through the window, observing the snow accumulating against the glass. It seems so, I observed, as I took the mug from his hands. How fortunate it was that we had prepared in advance. He let out a soft chuckle, his weight resting casually against the counter. Perhaps it is simply you and I today. I nodded, striving to dismiss the flutter in my chest that his words stirred within me. It appears so. The hours dragged on, the snow veiling the world beyond the window. We gathered around the fire, engaging in card games, sharing cherished tales, and reveling in the humor of foolish memories. We experienced a sensation of being encased in a bubble, detached from the world around us. As dusk settled in, the storm intensified, causing the power to flicker ominously before plunging into darkness. Moments later, the generator roared to life. "I'll grab the candles," James murmured, his voice steady in the sudden silence. He came back, cradling a handful of candles, their gentle illumination casting a calming radiance across the room. The flames danced and flickered, casting a warm glow that enveloped the room in an enchanting embrace. I settled onto the couch, observing as he arranged the candles upon the table. As he pivoted to meet my gaze, an enigmatic quality lingered in his expression that eluded my understanding. "Are you all right?" he asked, taking a seat beside me. I replied, my voice trembling slightly, "I'm all right." He extended his hand toward mine, and his touch radiated warmth and steadiness. "There is no need for fear. I am not filled with terror." I was not truthful. "You are," he remarked with a gentle tone. "I can perceive it." As I looked down at our hands, his fingers wove seamlessly with mine. "James, this doesn't seem correct." "Who determines what is right?" he asked, his tone a blend of calmness and urgency. "What of the world? Others or ourselves?" I found myself without an answer. All I understood was that the boundary I had established was fading, and the heat of his hand on mine rendered it challenging to recall the reasons behind the existence of the barrier initially. "Time is what I seek." I finally mustered the courage to speak, my voice barely rising above a whisper. He inclined his head and let go of my hand. "Feel free to take as long as you require. I will remain right here." That evening, while the snowflakes danced softly from the sky, I found myself lingering outside his door. Unbeknownst to me, the reasons that brought me to that moment remained shrouded in mystery, save for the undeniable fact that something monumental had transpired between us. The door stood ajar, revealing him perched on the edge of the bed, gazing out the window. I spoke softly to James. He turned his gaze, encountering mine with a blend of astonishment and warmth in his expression. "Greetings," he has replied. I halted, my heart pounding fiercely. "I wanted to reach out and see how you were doing." "I'm okay," he murmured, drawing nearer. "Yet, do you truly find yourself in that position?" I shook my head, tears beginning to gather in my eyes. "I am uncertain." Uncertainty envelopes me, leaving me at a loss for how to escape these emotions that cling so tightly. He extended his hand gently, grazing my cheek with a soft touch. He then whispered softly, "Keep going, simply embrace the moment." I shut my eyes and surrendered to his caress. For the first time, I permitted myself to confront the reality. I had no desire to drive him away. I was reluctant to resist the bond that had formed between us. With his arms enveloping me, drawing me near, a profound tranquility washed over me, a feeling I hadn't experienced in years. Outside, the snowfall unleashed its fury, yet within, a serene tranquility reigned, everything arranged in perfect harmony. The tempest raged for days on end, reshaping the world into a desolate expanse of ice and snow. Within the confines of the house, a warmth enveloped the space, creating an atmosphere of comfort, as though time itself had come to a standstill. James and I navigated the days with a sense of familiarity. Despite the unconventional nature of our unvoiced feelings, I tried to convince myself that our closeness was merely temporary, a product of our isolation. Yet, within the depths of my being, I was aware of the truth. Each laugh we shared, every fleeting gaze, and every brief brush of our hands hinted at something inescapable. As the evening deepened and the fire flickered softly, we savored our tea in the warmth of the living room. Curled up in the cozy corner of the couch, I was enveloped in a warm blanket, while James sprawled nearby, his head gently resting against the back of the couch. The quiet enveloped the space, a delightful tension hanging in the air, reminiscent of the calm that precedes a tempest. "You've been quiet," he replied, his voice a gentle whisper. "I find myself feeling quite weary," I remarked. Yet that was not the complete truth. "Are you weary of my presence?" He derided, his smile playful and impish. I shook my head, a faint smile playing on my lips. "Absolutely not." His smile vanished, replaced by a look of serene determination. "Your strength has always commanded my respect," he remarked. "Despite all that you've endured, you've remained unbroken," and a lump rose in my throat. "I must summon my strength," I confessed gently, "for both you and my own sake." "What comes next?" he asked, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Have you ever granted yourself the freedom to just be yourself?" His question caught me by surprise. I turned my eyes away, feeling the heaviness of it bearing down on me. I confessed, "I'm uncertain about the way forward." He edged nearer, his presence solid and unwavering. "You don't always have to wear the armor of strength," he explained. "Not in my presence." I turned my eyes toward him, my heart shattering at the raw truth reflected in his gaze. "James, I find myself at a loss regarding this matter," I whispered, my voice trembling. "I find myself uncertain about how to dispel it entirely." "Maybe it's not necessary," he murmured gently. "Perhaps it was never meant to fade into oblivion." I shook my head, tears cascading down my cheeks. "It was never meant to unfold in this manner." "What holds us back?" he asked. His voice was steady yet filled with urgency. "Who determines the way things ought to be?" I parted my lips to speak, yet found myself at a loss for words. The steadfastness of his serene conviction rendered my long-held rationality utterly hollow. As he extended his hand towards mine, his touch radiated warmth and comfort, pulling me away from the chaos of my racing thoughts. That night, as I reclined in bed, my mind was consumed by his words. His voice was gentle, and he looked at me as though I were the sole focus of his world. It was a singular experience, unlike any I had ever encountered before. It filled me with fear, yet simultaneously captivated my attention. As the tempest receded, the landscape beyond transformed, cloaked in a delicate shroud of snow. The roads lay impassable, while the house persisted as our sanctuary. James and I fell back into our routine, a rhythm that felt oddly unfamiliar. Our relationship is blossoming in ways I once thought were beyond reach. One afternoon, as I lingered by the window, observing the snow gradually surrendering to the gentle warmth of the sun, I sensed his presence drawing near. His presence exuded a sense of familiarity and calmness. He remained silent initially, simply standing there, his warmth enveloping me. "Is it not a sight to behold?" He finally uttered his words in a hushed tone. "Is it?" I exhaled, my breath fogging the glass. He took a moment, allowing silence to envelop the room before he spoke once more. "You have eternally been my sanctuary, you see. Your unwavering presence in my life has been a constant source of support. Regardless of the paths I have traversed or the experiences I have encountered." I found myself turning to him, my heart shattering at the sight of the raw vulnerability reflected in his gaze. "James, I'm not requesting that you speak at all," he cut in sharply. "I just wanted you to be aware. Your feelings may differ, yet it is essential for you to grasp the significance of your presence in my life." His words hung thick in the atmosphere. I scrutinized his face, searching for an elusive something that remained just out of reach. In a moment of silence, when words eluded me, I took his hand and squeezed it firmly. That evening, as we sat by the fire, a shift occurred in our relationship. The obstacles that once loomed large now seemed fragile, nearly invisible. I stood my ground as he leaned in, his eyes locked onto mine. "I cannot bear the thought of losing you," he murmured gently. His voice brimmed with a palpable sense of desperation. "You won't?" I murmured, my voice trembling. "Yet this is far from straightforward." "I don't mind if it's not easy," he replied, his fingers lightly grazing my hand. Your well-being is what truly matters to me. His words fractured something deep inside me. Before I could rein in my impulses, I found myself leaning in, my forehead gently resting against his. We lingered in that space, the chaos of the world fading into the background, leaving only the rhythm of our breaths echoing in the stillness. Uncertainty looms over the path ahead. My voice, a mere whisper, barely cuts through the silence. Yet I can no longer maintain the facade. In that moment he smiled, a smile both tender and achingly beautiful. It is not necessary for you to do so, as he enveloped me in his embrace, holding me as though he would never release his grip. An unfamiliar tranquility washed over me. Whatever this may have been or could evolve into, it belonged to us,